This girl put food on her head to deliver to customers while texting her grandmother. But this strange action made people around think she was a circus performer. At this time, not far away, a mother was panicking because while watching her child, she accidentally caused the baby carriage to fall down the slope. They only saw the girl delivering food, looking at her phone and snapping her fingers, and time immediately stopped. The baby was no longer in danger. The girl continued to deliver the goods and was almost hit by a luxury car. The girl stood up angrily, scaring the two people in the car. She also used a threatening gaze to look at them and then left. But she didn't know that this accidental collision was her curse. The young master and the secretary in the car hurriedly went out to chase her. Unexpectedly, they discovered that the girl seemed very normal and was fine. The front of their luxury car was dented. It turned out that she was a witch. Cho-hong lived with her grandmother and aunt. They were also witches. Cho-hong was late with her delivery. Her grandmother just had to throw a sharp knife at her, and she could easily dodge it. She then used her ability to help her grandmother cut vegetables and wash dishes. Hearing someone calling her, Cho-hong suddenly stopped. She was afraid that someone would discover her ability. Luckily, it was her aunt. At this time, the young Chibol, whose car had a front end, was looking for information about a porridge restaurant of the girl family. The first was to get revenge on her for destroying his car. The second was to find an old house that was built 25 years ago. In his memory, this place was a famous restaurant in that area. Although many stores were struggling due to the economic crisis, this restaurant had been there for more than 50 years. The restaurant did not advertise, but customers still came a lot. There were also rumors that they put drugs in the porridge. What was even more special was that no matter who the customers were or where they came from, the restaurant would close at 6 o'clock in the evening. They even took away the spoons while the customers were eating and closed the shop. To prove it, the secretary collected pictures of the three people living in that house, but not a single picture showed a human being. This made Sung-jae dissatisfied. Because they lived very cautiously and did not interact with anyone around them, there was very little information about them. When he heard their ages, Sung-jae thought that they were not the people he was looking for. But he also wondered what they did after 6 o'clock in the evening. After closing the shop, the three witches ate, drank, and played cards together. Cho-hong's grandmother told her to absolutely not care about humans. Her grandmother warned her that if she always used her powers to help them, she would be discovered and have a tragic end. The next day, Cho-hong went to the supermarket to buy things, but another man came and stood in front of her. Cho-hong reached up to get the food, but the food tray hit Sung-jae. He quickly threw her away, but the situation changed. She threw him down on the floor in front of many people. Cho-hong realized that this was the person who had hit her by car last time, so she glared at him and then left. Sung-jae searched for the address to the porridge restaurant. At this time, Cho-hong was also on her way home. Cho-hong saw Sung-jae following her around. His actions made her angry, thinking he was a crazy stalker. Sung-jae arrived in front of the porridge restaurant. He was extremely surprised that it was the same place he had been looking for. Sung-jae had not yet recovered from his shock when Cho-hong threw a bucket of water in his face, making his whole body wet. Sung-jae angrily left. After that, he went home to contact someone to investigate that strange house. One evening, a man who owned a chicken shop nearby came to visit. Seeing that the porridge restaurant was doing well, he wanted to steal the recipe. While Cho-hong was out on the phone, he snuck in and hid in a corner, picked up his phone, and secretly filmed everyone cooking porridge. Then, a magical seasoning scene surprised him. The three of them put in something that created a strange light. Then a strong wind blew everything up into the air. His whole body was also shaken by the wind. Hearing the noise, the three witches stopped. The man was discovered, so he was scared and begged for his life. Cho-hong's grandmother then approached and placed her hand on his head, then put him in a bag and drove away. Sung-jae was also in front of the shop, watching the house. He stood to the side and saw the three people's strange actions. The next morning, the three of them leisurely drank tea and enjoyed the weekend. Cho-hong went to get some fruit when she heard a knock on the door. She had told them that the shop would be closed for the weekend, but a certain customer still insisted on coming in. Cho-hong opened the door and was surprised to see Sung-jae. He even introduced himself as the owner of the building. This surprised Cho-hong. The secretary said that his director had bought the building. Cho-hong's aunt took out the lease, but it had long since rotted. Even the previous owner of the building had passed away 3 years ago. They had no other way to prove it. Sung-jae also asked them to move out within 2 weeks. Seeing this, Cho-hong chased after him and asked him if he was doing this to get revenge for what she had done to him. Sung-jae said that if they wanted to stay, they would have to pay a deposit of 100 million won and a monthly rent of 20 million won. This amount of money stunned the three of them. In order to earn that money legally, Cho-hong's grandmother decided to live and work like a normal person. They would work overtime and not enjoy luxurious evenings anymore. Even though they had been in business for 50 years, the money they earned was only for enjoying life. Cho-hong's grandmother and aunt started to borrow money from the bank, but they were past working age and had had no collateral, so no one gave them the loan. They even laughed at her, which made her mad. She taught them a lesson. Cho-hong then made an appointment to meet her boyfriend. He was a bank employee. He saw that Cho-hong's family's porridge restaurant was doing well, so he thought that there would be many valuable assets that her aunt would leave her. So he was determined to stick with her. Knowing that Cho-hong wanted to borrow money and that the building did not belong to her family, he was disappointed and made an excuse to leave. Cho-hong later went home and told her grandmother and aunt that her boyfriend would help them borrow money. Cho-hong's grandmother did not believe that she should be careful with humans. Her powers were running out because of her blind love for someone who did not love her. If this continued, then the fact that they were living here trying to regain their powers would be completely in vain. Cho-hong was angry that her grandmother did not understand the feeling of love between couples. The next day, Cho-hong went to deliver goods again. She suddenly saw her boyfriend and followed him. Cho-hong discovered that he was having an affair with an ugly old pig's feet shop owner. He did it only for money. Knowing this, Cho-hong was extremely disappointed. Her scream shook everything. She sat sadly and cried bitterly on the side of the road. That night, Sung-jae was walking on the street when he saw Cho-hong's absent-minded and dejected figure passing by him. He quickly told his secretary to stop the car and ran after her. In front of a supermarket, he saw her sitting drunk. He advised her to go home, but she said that humans like him were all bad people, so she had to be careful. Sung-jae said that she was also human. Cho-hong stood up and whispered that I am a witch. He was very surprised to hear that. Then Cho-hong fell to the ground. He shook her awake and said that he would not do like in the movies and carry her home. A second later, Cho-hong was lying on Sung-jae's back. When they entered a dark street, the street lights suddenly turned on, which surprised and confused him. The next day when Cho-hong woke up, she snapped her fingers and used magic to get water. But strangely, nothing happened. At the same time, Sung-jae appeared. He made her take responsibility for what she did last night when she was drunk. Not only did she injure his head, she also bit his foot and took his sandal and refused to let go. Cho-hong felt awkward and didn't know what to do, so she made an excuse and left. Cho-hong then thought back to what happened last night that made her extremely embarrassed and blamed herself. She was also a little scared. Then Cho-hong sneaked home. Cho-hong was startled and panicked when she learned that her witch mark had disappeared. This meant that she had lost all her witch powers. Because she didn't believe it was true, Cho-hong secretly went to the kitchen and tried again and again, but her powers had really disappeared. At the same time, Cho-hong's aunt came over to remind her of her love affair with the finance employee. If she gave all her trust to a human and only received betrayal in return, her witch mark would disappear. Cho-hong looked scared and asked her aunt what would happen if her magical powers disappeared. Cho-hong's grandmother said that if her powers disappeared, she would be banished to a dark, cold, and dirty place. There, she would not have any good memories. She couldn't tell who she was or where she was. There were only screams and demons, a hellish world worse than death. Cho-hong was terrified when she heard that. At night, Cho-hong sneaked into the warehouse to look for something valuable from witches. Then she did something so that her aunt and grandmother wouldn't find out that she had lost all her magic. Cho-hong made an excuse that she would live as a human and she wouldn't use her powers to deliver all the food anymore. When Cho-hong's aunt saw this, she also felt strange. After returning to the shop, Cho-hong saw Sung-jae coming. He brought her family a few contracts. He would lower the rent with a few conditions. Most importantly, he would move into this building to live with them. This caused everyone to strongly oppose. Cho-hong's aunt thought that they should erase Sung-jae's memory and send him to another country like chicken shop owner last time. But Cho-hong's grandmother said that if they continued to do that, it would be very troublesome. They would be more easily discovered. In addition to increasing the price of porridge and working overtime, Cho-hong's grandmother also agreed to record and answer interviews to make more people know her and earn more revenue. Faced with many questions from people gossiping about her holding a bowl of boiling soup with her bare hands or carrying a bag of rice with just one hand, she tried to refute, saying that she was just an ordinary person who could not do that. But they showed the photo as evidence. In the photo, Cho-hong was carrying 10 trays of food on her head and delivering the goods. Cho-hong was wearing high heels and holding her phone in her hand to text. Cho-hong's grandmother could not control the anger. The grandmother chased and beat Cho-hong, causing chaos during the filming. Then another actress took on Cho-hong's challenge. She carried trays of hot porridge on her head to move around, but unfortunately, she was played dirty by her colleagues. Fortunately, Cho-hong's grandmother used some magic to prevent the accident. Cho-hong was surprised to see her grandmother using powers, because her grandmother was the one who forbade her and her aunt from showing their powers to humans. At night, Cho-hong brought an item to the front door of a pawn shop. There was a dark witch who had been exiled. She would do anything without caring about price. Cho-hong was afraid to go see her. Cho-hong said that she had lost her powers and wanted to get them back. When the dark witch knew that Cho-hong was a witch, she laughed loudly. Her laughter caused dark clouds and thunder to gather. rather. Cho Hong brought out a silver plate as a bargaining chip, but she'd not bothered to receive Cho Hong. What she wanted were things that had memory value to humans, things that humans thought were trash, but to her, they had a different value. When the Dark Witch saw the necklace that was Cho Hong's mother's keepsake, she was immediately delighted. When she touched it, she saw Cho Hong's mother being burned by fire because of her blind love. This is what the Dark Witch is interested in. In order to find a way to help Cho Hong regain her powers, the Dark Witch said that she had 3 weeks to regain her powers. Otherwise, she would gradually become ugly, lose all her strength and youth. She would become a horrible person and would be exiled to live in the darkness. Cho Hong was afraid and did not want that to happen. The Dark Witch took out a pair of elf ears. These ears would help Cho Hong find the true love of her life. As long as she had his heart, she would regain her powers without fear of losing them. Then Cho Hong walked down the street and saw a group of handsome men. She immediately put on the elf ears and listened, but she only heard the bell. At the same time, Sung Jae moved his belongings to Cho Hong's porridge restaurant. He even installed a camera in the room. Furthermore, he also gave some confusing rules. But Cho Hong's grandmother absolutely forbade him from going to the warehouse and kitchen, which were her family's private places. This made Sung Jae even more suspicious. Meanwhile, Jae Wook, a comic book author, was vaguely thinking about the guy living in Cho Hong's house when his father arrived. His father was extremely angry when his father found out that he had given up studying for the civil service exam to pursue a vague passion. But seeing his earnestness, his father accepted and supported his pursuit. His father reminded him that he was old and could not support his son for long. Seeing his father's appearance, Jae Wook was also very sad. On the other hand, Sung Jae was chatting with his secretary outside when he accidentally saw Cho Hong hiding and avoiding someone. Her bad boyfriend was looking for her. He met her because he had finished the loan procedures that required her signature. Cho Hong was dissatisfied and told him to throw it away because she didn't need it anymore. But he didn't agree because this would affect his work reputation. He thought she wanted revenge for the breakup. He also loudly blamed her for deceiving him because her family didn't have any of her assets. In response to the bad guy's words, Cho Hong was very grateful to him for letting her know what it felt like to love someone. He shouldn't have lied to her about the third person, causing her to lose everything now. But Cho Hong still wanted him to treat her well. He firmly denied it. He even manipulated her so that she wouldn't be able to cancel the contract, but she still firmly refused. At this time, Sung Jae saw that something was wrong and couldn't help but punch the bad guy. Then Sung Jae came and dragged Cho Hong away. Seeing his attitude, she felt uncomfortable. She told him not to care about her business. Sung Jae said that he didn't want to care either, but there were some reasons why he had to care. It turned out that she was suffering that night because of that bastard. He hoped that she wouldn't do anything that would make him care anymore. Sung Jae then left, leaving Cho Hong bewildered, not knowing what to do. The two then returned home with a resentful attitude. Cho Hong's aunt immediately realized that the two of them had just had an argument. On the other hand, Cho Hong's aunt felt suspicious of Sung Jae when he suddenly asked to move in with them. Cho Hong's grandmother said that Cho Hong's aunt was thinking too much because he said he didn't have the freedom to buy a house. Meanwhile, Cho Hong was tossing and turning with her goblin ears when she heard a noise outside. But when she opened the door, there was no one. The person who made the noise was Sung Jae. He went to her family's warehouse, but the door was carefully locked. At that moment, a memory image flashed before his eyes. The scene of a mysterious man in black holding a seriously injured child, not knowing what happened to him. The next morning, Cho Hong saw that her expression was showing signs of decline because she had lost her witch powers. She was busy making herself beautiful to go on an important mission. As soon as Cho Hong reached the door, she met Sung Jae again. Everyone's faces were full of murderous intent. No one even gave way to the stares. Sung Jae was taken care of by his grandmother and aunt for breakfast, a table full of sumptuous food, but Cho Hong's grandmother still said there was nothing to eat, which surprised Sung Jae greatly. On the other hand, Jae Wook thought a lot after seeing his father's sad expression when he said he wanted to pursue his dream. He visited his long-lost mother to seek comfort. Then, he dejectedly went to a bar and got drunk. At the same time, Cho Hong was still working hard on the streets to find her destiny. She used the goblin headphones from morning to night. When her legs were tired, she sat down to wait for the bus to go home. On the bus, Jae Wook saw Cho Hong and quickly called her. He took the empty seat and told her to sit down. Seeing his enthusiastic appearance, she couldn't refuse. Jae Wook asked Cho Hong who the man living with her was. Jae Wook advised Cho Hong to kick him out of her house. Before Cho Hong could explain, Jae Wook fell asleep because he was drunk. Seeing Jae Wook's handsomeness, Cho Hong couldn't stop looking at her. He suddenly leaned his head on her shoulder. After that, Cho Hong had to carry the drunk man back to his house. She didn't know how many years she had aged today because of this man. Hearing him mumble about his disappointment in life made her angry. It turned out that he hadn't passed out yet, causing her to waste her energy. But seeing his miserable appearance, she couldn't bear to blame him. Jae Wook asked Jae Wook if he should give up his dream to fulfill his responsibility responsibilities as a son. She also advised him to pursue his dream while he was still passionate about it. The romantic atmosphere appeared when Jae-wook suddenly grabbed Cho-hong's elf ears. He asked her if this was dried squid. He was about to put it in his mouth when she took it back. The two struggled and lay on top of each other. At that moment, Sun-jae came to Jae-wook's house because of the advertisement. He was surprised to see this scene. He said that he might be bothering the two of them. Then he left. Sun-jae's attitude was extremely angry when he saw Cho-hong. He kept scolding her for looking like someone who likes to toy with other people's feelings. She had just been miserable for a short while and was now happy with another man. Sun-jae didn't know, so he worried about her like a busybody. Seeing Sun-jae's harsh words, Cho-hong asked if he liked her, right? That's why he was upset when he saw her break up. If he liked her, he would have said why he had to find a reason to fight. Moreover, he wasn't her type. Being hit on the weak point, Sun-jae couldn't admit it. He kept running after her and loudly saying that she wasn't type of person he liked. Seeing the scene of the two of them, the secretary and Jae-wook, who were looking down, didn't understand what was going on. Sun-jar was angry because of Cho-hong's question, so he couldn't sleep. Her question kept popping up in his head. Do you like her? The next day, when Sun-jae's secretary saw Cho-hong walking on the street, the secretary mentioned her, making him feel annoyed. He even said that he didn't like anyone. Cho-hong's grandmother and aunt saw her with a thick layer of makeup on her face and gray hair on her head, so they became suspicious and dragged her into the room. Sure enough, the witch's rosemark on Cho-hong's body disappeared. This made the two of them extremely worried. They also saw the dark witch's elf ears. There was no other way, so Cho-hong's grandmother said that she must find the man of destiny and kiss him. At that time, the mark of the rose would appear again. If Cho-hong could win that man's heart, she would never fear betrayal or her ability would disappear again. Time was running out for Cho-hong's beauty. She went out to actively search. At this moment, Jae-wook was walking and he saw Cho-hong's figure. He called her and told her to stay still. He would come to her. At this time, when the distance between the two of them was getting closer, Cho-hong began to hear the signal from the elf ears. Her destiny had appeared, making her extremely surprised. In the midst of the crowded crowd, Jae-wook could not determine Cho-hong's location. While Cho-hong was confused, a pair of hands patted her shoulder. It was Sun-jae. Seeing him, she accidentally dropped her phone. She thought he was her destiny. She immediately shouted in dissatisfaction, "Why him?" At this time, Jae-wook was still looking for Cho-hong in the crowd, but he only found her dropped phone and she had disappeared. Sun-jae immediately pulled Cho-hong's hand to another place to talk. He looked for her to apologize for being angry with her for no reason, but a reasonable person like him, since meeting her, could not think of anything. He asked her what she thought of him as a man. While Sun-jae was confessing his feelings, Cho-hong only thought about kiss with destiny. She did not pay attention to his words, making him extremely embarrassed and making an excuse to leave. But Cho-hong tried to hold him back. She offered to invite him to lunch, but she mistakenly said that she told him to find a place to kiss. The atmosphere was extremely awkward, making Sun-jae not know what to do. He pretended to answer the secretary's phone and said he had urgent business. Then he left quickly, even though the secretary said it was nothing urgent. Sun-jae sat in the car, his confession to Cho-hong still lingering in his mind. He couldn't stand the silly thing he had just done, so he yelled. This scared the secretary. The secretary asked Sun-jae what happened. Sun-jae asked him, "What do you think of me?" This question made Secretary Kim even angrier. At this time, Cho-hong returned home in a gloomy state. She even drank fish sauce instead of water. Cho-hong's grandmother and aunt were happy when they knew that her destined person was Sun-jae, but Cho-hong said that their relationship was not good. She argued, fought, and even bit him. When Cho-hong's grandmother found out about this, she was extremely angry. They had to gradually plan for Cho-hong to have her first kiss with Sun-jae. At this moment, Jae-wook came to find her. When he saw her, he quickly hugged her and said that he was very worried about her. Then he gave her the phone back. He thought she was kidnapped by someone. Cho-hong asked what if someone kidnapped her. Jae-wook wanted to confess his feelings, but he said that without her, no one would deliver porridge to him. His answer made her dissatisfied and went inside the house. At the same time, on the way back, Sun-jae asked his secretary how his love was. The secretary also enthusiastically told Sun-jae about his story. At first, the two of them did not like each other very much, but wherever they went, they saw each other's figures. In his heart, he often thought and worried about the other person. He thought he was in love with that person. Sun-jae also slowly realized that he had feelings for Cho-hong. At home, the three of them prepared a romantic dinner for Cho-hong and Sun-jae, but he came home too late. The three of them happily waited for him to come home with fake smiles. Cho-hong's grandmother and aunt made an excuse to leave so that the two of them could have some privacy. Cho-hong took the initiative to start a happy conversation. She invited him to drink with her, but he still tried to be cold and create distance. The next day, when Sun-jae was preparing to go to work, he saw an invitation card sent to him. He didn't care and threw it in the trash. That invitation card also flew to Jae-wook and Secretary Kim's place. When Jae-wook came to sign the contract with Sun-jae for the advertisement model, the two men looked at each other like longtime rivals. Sunjae suddenly saw the invitation card on Jae-wook's person, so he canceled all his work to go to the porridge restaurant to attend the 50th anniversary party for VIP customers. But in fact, it was just an excuse to help Cho-hong shorten the time to get her first kiss. Seeing Jae-wook appear extremely handsome, Sunjae also felt hesitant to respond. The two men couldn't blink when they saw Cho-hong in her beautiful appearance. The celebration started with a very happy meal together. At the dining table, Jae-wook was always taking care of Cho-hong, making Sunjae extremely uncomfortable. After they finished eating, Cho-hong's grandmother announced that they would play games to win extremely valuable prizes. Sunjae expressed that he did not want to participate, making the secretary extremely excited. Because of the prizes and money, Sunjae's secretary came here to participate in the prize to prepare for his marriage. Hearing these words from his subordinate made Sunjae angry. He decided to play to the end with the secretary. First, they would draw the ball to divide the team. Of course, according to the arrangement, Cho-hong and Sunjae would be a couple, while Jae-wook would be with Secretary Kim. Cho-hong's aunt and grandmother would be on one team, starting with the game of eating cake sticks. With the ambition to win the prize, Secretary Kim quickly started playing with his teammates. On the other hand, Sunjae also tried to win the game with Cho-hong. The two looked at each other face to face. Suddenly, they were startled by Secretary Kim's shout. To prevent Secretary Kim from winning the prize, Cho-hong's grandmother and aunt tried to make the shortest cookie stick to win this game. In the second game, they would stand on a newspaper with a smaller area. Whoever lost first would have a punishment of having to kiss each other. Cho-hong tried to blow magic into Sunjae's ear to make him lose quickly. But before they could lose, Jae-wook next to them was afraid that Cho-hong would kiss someone else, so he pretended to struggle so that his team would lose first. This action of his made an ambitious person like Secretary Kim extremely annoyed. Cho-hong's grandmother and aunt were still the winners in this game. The three witches had reached the final solution. In the third game, each team's representative would have to drink a glass of beer in the shortest amount of time. Cho-hong's grandmother even intentionally put a little magic kiss into Sunjae's glass. But when they were about to start, the ambitious Secretary Kim saw that the amount of beer in each glass was not the same, so he tried to grab Sunjae's glass because it had the least. Although everyone tried to stop them, they were still no match for Secretary Kim's desire to win. As a result, he got drunk and kept saying he loved Sunjae. Cho-hong's grandmother and aunt thought that Sunjae really didn't like Cho-hong, which was obvious. But on Sunjae's side, thinking about the moments he had spent with Cho-hong today, he was extremely happy. In the middle of the night, he groped his way out of the room to look for something. Suddenly, he tripped over the stairs and fell unconscious. Cho-hong and everyone else ran out and saw him, extremely panicked. Cho-hong's grandmother wanted to tell Cho-hong's aunt to get medicine and wake Sunjae up, but they realized that he was unconscious. This was a good opportunity for Cho-hong to kiss back the rose. The three of them started to struggle fiercely. At this moment, Sunjae suddenly woke up and screamed. Cho-hong explained that she only intended to perform CPR to save him. Sunjae stretched and stood up, but after the fall, his leg was sprained. In the midst of his pain, he suddenly saw a familiar baseball. On the other hand, Sunjae's mother was recalling what happened 20 years ago. Sunjae was kidnapped for a few days in an accident. When they found him, he had no memory of what happened during the days of his kidnapping. The wound on his chest was completely gone. But after that, Sunjae always had nightmares. For many years, he had to undergo psychological therapy at a doctor. Seeing him living in a porridge restaurant because he was searching for inanimate things in his dreams, his mother was extremely angry. Moreover, now his leg was injured, so his mother advised him to stop and go home. But Sunjae said that it would only be a little while longer and he promised to return. When he walked out of his room, his mother thought that the three members of Cho-hong's family were maids, so she ordered Secretary Kim to change them to someone younger because they looked too ugly. Hearing those words, the three people were extremely angry. On the other hand, Cho-hong's grandmother thought that with so many people coming, their identities would easily be exposed. So Cho-hong's grandmother thought that after they used Sunjae as the person destined to regain Cho-hong's ability, they should find a way to kick him out of the house. Cho-hong immediately objected and said that he was the master of the house after all. But Cho-hong's grandmother said that she shouldn't get involved in human love. Then Cho-hong brought porridge into Sunjae's room. Seeing him sleeping, she couldn't pass up the opportunity to steal a kiss from him, but he opened his eyes and caught her in the act. He pressed her down and said that even though she was easy, to him, a kiss was the beginning of a romance. When that person was right for him, that beginning would have meaning. Cho-hong immediately sarcastically mocked him and said that he didn't know how to kiss, so he made excuses for his weakness. Then she turned around and left, leaving him feeling frustrated. However, when she got outside, Cho-hong felt ashamed of her actions. Cho-hong delivered porridge to Jae-wook. She asked him how to know how love is formed and how she could get a man's love. Cho-hong made an excuse to ask for her aunt. Jae-wook said that as long as the boy realize that he had feelings for the girl. No matter what she did, he would be attracted, just like how Jae-wook did to Cho-hong. But she didn't realize his feelings for her. Hearing Jae-wook say that, Cho-hong gloomily thought that she had no way to win Sung-jae's heart because he was always cold to her. But thinking about living in a dark hell with an ugly appearance, no matter how difficult it was, she had to try. At night, Sung-jae went out to find the baseball he saw last night, but he was surprised to see Cho-hong's aunt's appearance that night, which made him fall to the floor again. The next day, Secretary Kim came to report on work at the company because Sung-jae was temporarily injured and could not come to work. In addition, Secretary Kim also informed Sung-jae of an important piece of information. According to his research, the rice porridge restaurant had kept its original flavor for 50 years, and the shop had never closed except on weekends. But 25 years ago, an exception happened. The shop had closed for one day. It had rained that day, and the person who saved him in the accident was still in the hospital. That accident also happened near the porridge restaurant. When putting together all these strange things and the memories that Sung-jae saw, Secretary Kim concluded that this was not a normal porridge restaurant because there were many missing people and everything had unknown origins. Secretary Kim was extremely scared, thinking that this was a place for human trafficking. Sung-jae's leg was still injured. At this moment, Cho-hong's grandmother brought in porridge. Afraid that the investigation photos would be discovered, Secretary Kim lay on top of Sung-jae and covered it up. When Cho-hong's grandmother was about to apply traditional medicine to Sung-jae's injured leg, Secretary Kim quickly stopped her. He whispered that this was something unsafe and kept preventing her from taking care of Sung-jae. Sung-jae saw this and immediately chased Secretary Kim out. At this time, Secretary Kim made an excuse to ask her about TV he won last time when he won the game. Cho-hong's 3 family members watched uncomfortably as Secretary Kim drove away with the TV. Meanwhile, their plan was ruined by him. At night, Cho-hong's grandmother told her to bring food to her room to find a way to seduce Sung-jae. At this moment, he came down from somewhere and said he would sit down and eat with everyone. The 3 of them were chatting when suddenly Sung-jae's phone rang. Cho-hong quickly stood up and said that since he was injured, she would go get it for him. When Cho-hong went into the room to get his phone, she saw the photos and documents about her porridge restaurant that Sung-jae had sent someone to follow. At this point, she began to suspect him. At the dining table, Cho-hong's grandmother asked him why he chose to buy this house when there were many other options. Sung-jae said that it was because he had memories of this place. He had come here to eat once when he was young. He wanted to come back later, but the shop was closed at that time. Cho-hong's aunt said that their shop had never been closed. Then Cho-hong's grandmother and aunt looked at each other, as if remembering some incident. Cho-hong's grandmother pretended to say that it was because of the flood that time, so all the shops were closed. It had been so long since then that she couldn't remember who it was. Maybe he had mistaken it for another shop. Seeing the 2 people's confusion made Sung-jae even more curious. After that, Cho-hong's grandmother and aunt couldn't help but recall a certain accident that she didn't want to mention. Thinking back to Sung-jae's strange actions, Cho-hong's grandmother also had some doubts. At the same time, Cho-hong couldn't sleep either. She didn't know why Sung-jae approached her family and what happened on the night of the accident, but she told herself that after kissing him and regaining her strength, she wouldn't see him again. At this time, Sung-jae also sneaked out of the room. He found a chair and stood up to get the baseball on top of the cabinet. Cho-hong also saw that, so she asked him what he was planning. Sung-jae said that he just wanted to confirm a few important things. He wanted to know if his memories were real or just a dream. He apologized for lying to her about this. At this moment, Cho-hong's grandmother suddenly came down. In order for Cho-hong's grandmother not to find out, Cho-hong led Sung-jae to hide in the corner of the kitchen and wait for her grandmother to go upstairs. The 2 of them looked at each other face to face. After Cho-hong's grandmother went upstairs, she said that he should wait here because it would take a while for her grandmother and aunt to fall asleep. Cho-hong was about to leave when he grabbed her hand. Sung-jae suddenly kissed her. He said that maybe they should start a romantic relationship. Then the 2 of them shared a sweet kiss. Meanwhile, at the dark witch's place, a magic potion suddenly broke. Seeing this, she realized that something bad had happened. After the romantic kiss last night, Cho-hong was happily singing and dancing in the early morning. Cho-hong's grandmother and aunt thought that her ability was gradually disappearing, so her mind was probably going crazy. They told Cho-hong to take the opportunity to plan to get a kiss from Sung-jae. Cho-hong happily said that she had just given him a simple kiss last night, but thinking about her grandmother saying that they would kick Sung-jae out of the house after taking advantage of him, she pretended to make up another excuse. At the same time, Sung-jae asked Cho-hong if she had slept well last night. Afraid that the 2 of them would be discovered, she intentionally got upset and blamed him for being too caring and then went into the room. He didn't know what he had done wrong, but seeing her indifferent attitude made him angry and left, leaving Cho-hong's grandmother and aunt looking at each other and sighing. Cho-hong then secretly brought breakfast to Sung-jae's room. room. He was confused by her actions this morning. She explained that she wanted to keep their relationship a secret for now. Before Sung Jae could ask any questions, Cho Hong's aunt brought breakfast to his room because she thought he was hungry. Cho Hong hid behind the door and was hit in the face by the aunt at the door, causing her nose to bleed. Seeing the breakfast on Sung Jae's table in front of her, Cho Hong's aunt was angry and thought he was secretly eating it, so she angrily went downstairs. When Cho Hong's aunt left, Sung Jae quickly ran over to wipe Cho Hong's nosebleed. She didn't feel any pain, but instead smiled happily. At this time, he accidentally saw the rose mark on her left chest glowing, but her hair covered it. Cho Hong then thought about the kiss with Sung Jae. She tried snapping her fingers and using her magic, but nothing happened. She quickly looked in the mirror and saw that her beauty hadn't aged too much. Cho Hong curiously asked her grandmother if she needed time to regain her powers after the kiss. Cho Hong's grandmother said that her powers would immediately return if she kissed her destiny. Hearing this, Cho Hong was extremely confused, but she still tried not to let her aunt and grandmother know about it. At the same time, Cho Hong received a text message from Sung Jae. He sent her a bunch of rules about their dating. After reading it, Cho Hong thought that he probably never dated. He sent her messages like he was giving orders to his subordinates. Cho Hong also received Jae-wook's messages. He always thought of her as a passionate lover, but she didn't pay any attention to him. At this time, Sung Jae received a call from the maid. He had someone take care of a man for many years in the hospital. It was the driver who saved Sung Jae from the accident years ago. This was also the person who knew what happened back then, but he had been in a coma in bed for 25 years since the accident. Meanwhile, at home, Cho Hong's grandmother and aunt felt that Cho Hong's time was running out. They rushed to create a magic potion so that Sung Jae could kiss Cho Hong. In order to shorten the time, they created a very strong dose that could affect his nerves. Hearing this, Cho Hong was extremely worried. She kept trying to signal him when her grandmother and aunt tried to serve him tea, but Sung Jae didn't pay any attention to Cho Hong's signal. He asked her to come to his private room to meet him. He apologized to her for the meeting that made him late. He asked her about the terms of the date. Cho Hong criticized his rigidity. Cho Hong teased Sung Jae with her ex-lover's name, making him jealous and angry. Seeing his jealous expression, she couldn't help but take the initiative to give him a kiss. Sung Jae also returned her kiss. Cho Hong's grandmother and aunt were outside, planning to bring porridge to Sung Jae when they accidentally saw this scene. The two quietly closed the door to give Cho Hong and Sung Jae some privacy. Cho Hong considered that she had completed her mission of regaining her witch powers. The next day, Cho Hong went to deliver porridge while thinking about when her powers would return. At the same time, Cho Hong received a text message about her appointment with Sung Jae at 6 p.m. Cho Hong smiled happily. At the same time, she looked up at the bright sunlight and felt that today was hotter than usual. Then Cho Hong suddenly fainted, causing Jae-wook to panic. With the situation before his eyes, he did not know how to wake her up. Seeing that Cho Hong was no longer breathing, Jae-wook did not hesitate. He performed artificial respiration to give her first aid. After that, he immediately took her to the hospital for emergency treatment. He kept telling the doctor that she had suddenly fainted. Her face was pale. Her heart and breathing had stopped, making him extremely worried. But the doctor said that her condition was completely normal. After the doctor and Jae-wook left, Cho Hong's body suddenly glowed. Even the lights were flashing. Her vitality and beauty gradually recovered. Jae-wook was worried about Cho Hong's health, so he asked for a re-examination. But when they saw Cho Hong's youthful vitality, both of them were surprised. At that time, Sung Jae was at the appointment waiting for Cho Hong to arrive, but he didn't see her. He called her, but she didn't answer. Cho Hong had left her phone when she fainted on Jae-wook's balcony. After returning from the hospital, Jae-wook was very worried about Cho Hong. He told her that he was very scared when he saw her like that. He decided to confess his feelings and said that it took him 2 years to realize that he liked her. They went to the same school when they were young, but Cho Hong transferred later, so she didn't remember anything about him. Every time Jae-wook was bullied by his friends, Cho Hong was the one to stand up for him. He told her to think slowly and he would wait for an answer. Jae-wook then teased Cho Hong. The two happily chased each other in front of the house. This scene was accidentally seen by Sung Jae. Sung Jae angrily got out of the car and told Cho Hong to come over to him. Jae-wook scolded Sung Jae for his attitude because he dared to order her around. Sung Jae told Cho Hong to explain their relationship to Jae-wook. He then angrily went into the house. Cho Hong apologized to Jae-wook and told him to go back. Cho Hong then went into Sung Jae's room. When he saw her, he was furious and shouted loudly. He had waited for her for 3 hours. Because of the secret between them, he could not ask her grandmother and aunt. Then he witnessed her playing around with another man. He did not accept any excuse from her. If she kept letting her emotions run wild like that, they should reconsider their relationship. This hurt Cho Hong. She did not bother to explain and angrily went back to her room. Just then, Sung Jae heard Cho Hong's grandmother and aunt say that she had fainted and was helped by someone else. At that moment, he regretted what he had said earlier, so he went to her room door, but his actions were seen by Cho Hong's grandmother and aunt. At night, Cho Hong sat combing her hair. She unconsciously snapped her fingers to take the comb. Cho-hong suddenly realized that her ability had recovered. She happily shouted with joy. The next morning, everyone sat down to eat breakfast together. Sunjae asked Cho-hong with concern, but she acted angry and stood up to go into her room. Sunjae didn't hesitate to follow Cho-hong. Cho-hong's grandmother and aunt looked at each other in confusion. Sunjae asked what he had to do to get Cho-hong to forgive him. She asked him to sing and dance for her to see. Even though he tried very hard, he only knew the national anthem and the song in the army. Seeing Sunjae's cuteness, Cho-hong didn't stay mad at him for too long. She hugged him and said sorry because she was wrong to make him worry. The two hugged each other very sweetly. Cho-hong kept avoiding Jae-wook even though he always cared about her. He also said that she was like a witch because she hypnotized his heart. When she was young, she just snapped her fingers and all the bullies who bullied him were injured. Even though she didn't remember anything about him when they met again, he was always impressed by her. Jae-wook said that he and Cho-hong were destined to be together. He also talked about the kiss when he performed CPR to save her. At this time, Cho-hong thought about the goblin ears that screamed when Jae-wook was near her and the fact that Cho-hong's witch powers returned when he kissed her. Cho-hong suddenly realized that Jae-wook was her destiny. Cho-hong then went to see the dark witch and told her about her story. Cho-hong asked if she could love someone who wasn't her destiny, but the dark witch said that people would have a hard time accepting differences. If they knew she was a witch, they would no longer love her and she would be betrayed again and end her life. On the contrary, with the destined boy, she wouldn't have to worry about that. Even if he knew she was a witch, he would still be loyal and devoted to her. Before leaving, the dark witch did not forget to tell Cho-hong to stay awake. She warned Cho-hong not to believe in love with humans. Cho-hong had a huge headache with two men. On the other hand, Sung-jae's secretary was still diligently investigating Cho-hong's family's porridge restaurant. Starting with Cho-hong, he did not know who her parents were, but one day, there was the sound of a newborn baby coming from Cho-hong's grandmother and aunt. People thought that they might have adopted her. Before Cho-hong went to elementary school, she carried a tray to deliver food. People thought that this was called exploiting the labor of minors. Because Cho-hong's grandmother and aunt came from a faraway place, they probably did not know about children's rights. But in fact, Cho-hong wanted to help them since she was little. When Cho-hong was in high school, she saw a girl being bullied and helped her. She used magic to deal with the thugs, which also made people afraid of her. Therefore, Cho-hong had to continuously transfer schools many times. When she was suspended from school, Cho-hong decided to stop studying, so her level was only at the high school level. Cho-hong used to have a deskmate. Cho-hong was also sought out by many sponsors because they saw her extraordinary abilities. There were even suitors who came to her house to confess their love to her. But in order to protect Cho-hong's identity and power, her grandmother and aunt always found ways to separate her from humans. So for 25 years, Cho-hong had no friends. She only knew how to help her grandmother deliver porridge. Sung-jae thought about how lonely Cho-hong had been with her grandmother and aunt for many years, and he felt very sorry for her. When he returned home, he saw her waiting for him at the door. Not seeing the other two, he quickly hugged her sweetly. Cho-hong also enjoyed his affection for her, but she suddenly thought of the dark wizard's words, so she quickly pushed him away and went back to her room. Cho-hong corrected herself that Sung-jae was not her destined boyfriend, but thinking of his sweet kisses and hugs, she couldn't lie to herself until her face turned red. Just then, Sung-jae also entered Cho-hong's room. When he saw her blushing, he thought she was sick. Cho-hong had just fainted a few days ago and had to deliver goods, so he thought she might have overworked herself. Even though Cho-hong said she was fine, Sung-jae still worriedly hugged her. He didn't want her to endure everything anymore because he was here now. Just as the two were being intimate, Cho-hong's aunt knocked on the door to find a nasal spray. Sung-jae could only quickly hide behind the door. Cho-hong's aunt wanted to talk about Sung-jae, but Cho-hong quickly stopped her. Cho-hong made an excuse to send her aunt back to her room to rest. The next day, Sung-jae called a professional doctor and nurse to come to Cho-hong's house to examine her because he was afraid that she was not well. After the examination, the doctor said that he was the one who needed to be examined because she was very healthy. As for him, he was too focused on one person. The doctor diagnosed him with love sickness and confusion. Cho-hong felt very happy when she heard that. Seeing this, Cho-hong's aunt pulled her aside to talk and asked about their relationship. Cho-hong's aunt said that Cho-hong was lucky to have fallen in love with the right guy, so she would keep this a secret from Cho-hong's grandmother. If it was someone else, she would put him on a smuggling boat and send him far away from this place. Cho-hong's aunt thought that human love was a very scary thing. Once you get involved, it will be hard to let go. When Cho-hong heard this, she was a little worried. After that, Cho-hong went to Sung-jae's room to find him. She secretly hugged him from behind, but he pushed her down because he was sensitive to things behind his back. Because of this, he was on the defensive with her the first time they met. Cho-hong saw the documents Sung-jae investigated about her, like the last time she saw, so she thought that he had become the host, but this time, he was seeing if she was suitable for him or not, or her finances and education were not suitable. Before Sung Jae could explain his suffering, Cho Hong angrily left. At this time, Jae Wook came to the house because Cho Hong's grandmother and aunt had invited him. When they heard him write about the witch and the lip, they warmly welcomed him. They also invited him upstairs to eat. Sung Jae saw that scene and sat at the table. He took on the role of the host and demanded to eat soup like Jae Wook. It turns out that Jae Wook wrote that story because he couldn't forget Cho Hong in the past, so he transformed his feelings into his work using his imagination, which made Cho Hong's grandmother feel very reassured. But Sung Jae thought it was just a silly cartoon story. Jae Wook said that Cho Hong was indeed a witch because she had a mysterious and cute beauty that attracted him. Hearing this, Cho Hong's grandmother and aunt felt panicked. Cho Hong annoyedly reminded Jae Wook to eat and not talk too much. Jae Wook said that maybe Cho Hong was feeling embarrassed because he confessed his feelings to her. Hearing this, Sung Jae was stunned and looked at Cho Hong with sharp eyes. Cho Hong's grandmother and aunt were also worried and asked how she answered him. Sung Jae was also confused. Jae Wook said that he would wait so she should think about it slowly. Cho Hong said that she would answer right away. She was very grateful for his feelings for her, but she refused. She said that from now on, she would give up on men. In front of her, he was gentle, but behind her back, he was digging for information. He is a two-faced and insincere person. She thinks all men are the same. She stood up and left. Cho Hong's grandmother was very pleased when she heard that. Jae Wook looked at Sung Jae. That night, Sung Jae texted Cho Hong saying he wanted to see her because he had to go on a business trip early tomorrow, but she didn't reply. He opened the door and saw her in front of his room. They made an appointment to go outside to talk. She wanted to hear him explain everything he was doing, and she didn't want to hear him lie. Sung Jae said that he had been kidnapped when he was young. He returned after 3 days, but the criminal was not caught. The driver who was watching him had an accident and was in a coma for 25 years. No one knew what happened during those 3 days. It was raining heavily. A knife was pointed at his heart. There was a person wearing a raincoat and a house with a pointed roof like her porridge restaurant. That was all he could remember. This was also the reason he bought her porridge restaurant, to find out. He tried to find the baseball with his name on it on the bookshelf because he brought it with him when he was kidnapped, but it turned out not to be it. Cho Hong realized that for so many years Sung Jae had lived in fear. He always acted cold to everyone. He was even so sensitive that no one could hug him from behind because he could not know who really harmed him. C hugged him and cried. She could not believe him, but her weak heart could not stop her feelings for him. In return, he used a sweet kiss to comfort her. The next day, Sung Jae said goodbye to Cho Hong to go on a business trip. Secretary Kim saw that Cho Hong was getting more and more beautiful, so he intended to introduce her to his younger brother, but Sung Jae stopped him. Sung Jae blamed him and urged him to go to work quickly. Cho Hong looked at Sung Jae with bright eyes full of love. Sung Jae's absence was the right time for the witch family to cook broth for the porridge because he was gone for 2 days. But in order to surprise Cho Hong, Sung Jae secretly returned at night. Right after the schedule ended, he also prepared a gift for her. Cho Hong's aunt carefully used magic to close all the doors to prepare for the witch's broth cooking. While the witch family was trying their best to cast their spells, Sung Jae also returned home. Seeing that the door was closed, he quickly went through the back door. He tried his best to push the door open and enter the house. As he was about to go upstairs, he accidentally passed by the kitchen. The strange multicolored lights and some sounds made Sung Jae curious and approached the kitchen. When they heard the noise outside, luckily the 3 witches withdrew their powers in time, so Sung Jae wouldn't notice. Seeing Sung Jae, Cho Hong immediately ran out to stop him from entering. Then she pulled him upstairs to talk. She was angry with him. She said that the 50-year-old family porridge restaurant was being watched by many people to steal the recipe. They even recorded videos, so Cho Hong's family was extremely cautious. Now that he had broken into her family's sensitive security place, he was no different from the others. If he had told her in advance, things wouldn't have turned out like this. Sung Jae angrily said that he missed her and wanted to surprise her, so he came back at night when he finished work early. But he didn't think it was worth her scolding him like this. Cho Hong felt guilty when she heard that. She hugged him from behind to comfort him. Of course, with her beauty, he couldn't stay angry for long. He just wanted to know everything about her. Meanwhile, because she was afraid that Sung Jae would see something, Cho Hong's aunt was about to take out a bottle of 65% alcohol to get him drunk. Cho Hong's aunt wanted him to tell the truth. Seeing the bottle of wine, Sung Jae was very surprised and asked Cho Hong's aunt, saying that when she was a great beauty, she was given it by a customer. She had kept it there until now. Sung Jae said that this type of vintage wine was very expensive. It could be worth more than 200 million won now. Hearing this, Cho Hong's aunt and grandmother changed their minds and no longer wanted to let him drink it. The two hurriedly went to put away the expensive wine bottle. Cho Hong and Sung Jae sat there and secretly kissed. Only when they heard Cho Hong's aunt remind them did they suddenly stand up. The next day, while the restaurant was crowded with customers, customers, an old man from far away came to buy porridge. Seeing him, Cho-hong's aunt was so surprised that she dropped the tray of dishes in her hands. After that, Cho-hong's aunt hid in a corner and cried. The man saw this and came to ask what happened, but he mistook person. After that, he said goodbye to Cho-hong's aunt and left. This made Cho-hong's aunt even sadder, because he didn't remember her. Even Cho-hong's aunt didn't want to eat her favorite dish, pig's feet. That old man was her unforgettable love when she was young. At that time, Cho-hong's aunt was a great beauty who was sought after by many men. Writers and royals were all infatuated with her charm, but her heart was weak in front of a handsome man. Even though he was famous for deceiving others, she still loved him blindly. The two of them experienced a sweet love. She thought he was her destined man. However, when he saw her difference, he couldn't accept it and left in fear. Since then, he has never looked back. This left a deep wound in her heart. Because she couldn't bear the pain of the past, Cho-hong's aunt left home to find peace. Cho-hong's grandmother felt that Cho-hong's aunt was not okay with being alone, so she handed over the porridge restaurant to Cho-hong. Then Cho-hong's grandmother went out to find Cho-hong's aunt. Sun-jae thought that he was comfortable with Cho-hong, but at this moment, Jae-wook appeared again. He was hired by his grandmother to help Cho-hong run the porridge restaurant. Seeing this, Sun-jae did not give up. The two men put on aprons together to serve customers for Cho-hong. The atmosphere was extremely tense. Secretary Kim was not spared by Sun-jae either. He had to be an unwilling delivery man. When Secretary Kim said that it was 40 degrees outside and he was too tired to continue delivering, Cho-hong offered to deliver the goods. But the two men couldn't bear to let her suffer. The two continued to fight each other in front of her. Since no one would give in, Cho-hong had to let the two handsome men split up to deliver the goods. At night, everyone sat down to have dinner together after a hard day's work. Secretary Kim curiously asked about the sequel to the story about the witch and the lip that Jae-wook was writing. The story was about the male lead discovering that his lover was a witch. He wondered how the male lead would face her. When Cho-hong heard this, she had many thoughts in her heart. Seeing that Cho-hong seemed tired, Sun-jae made an excuse to send Secretary Kim and Jae-wook home so he could have some private time with her. Then Cho-hong curiously asked him what he thought about the story about the witch's love that Jae-wook wrote. Sun-jae laughed and said that it was childish. He didn't find it interesting. Sun-jae's answer made Cho-hong angry. She was angry with him loudly, but he didn't understand what was going on. He thought they would have some private time when no one was home, but Jae-wook didn't let Sun-jae get what he wanted. He said he would sleep over to keep an eye on Cho-hong in case Sun-jae had any bad thoughts. Because she was angry with Sun-jae, Cho-hong didn't say anything. She angrily went into her room. Sun-jae went back to his room in dissatisfaction and saw Jae-wook lying on his bed. A stubborn person like Jae-wook made Sun-jae unable to chase him away. The two men on the same bed started fighting over the blanket. At midnight, Sun-jae felt uncomfortable sleeping in Jae-wook's arms, so Sun-jae quietly went out. Sun-jae saw that Cho-hong was still awake. He gently went to her side and apologized because he didn't know how to talk romantically and humorously. Even if she was a witch, he would still love her, so she didn't need to think too much or worry that he would forget her one day, because his love for her was more important than anything. Hearing these sweet words, she felt comforted and fell into his arms. On this side, Jae-wook was still awake. He also heard the story of the two of them behind the door. Although he didn't say anything, he felt a little sad. Cho-hong's aunt was currently searching for her old love memories. She went through places where she had memories to gnaw on. When she arrived at her ex-lover's house, she saw him feeding his wife porridge. He loved his wife so much. He went all the way to the city where she lived to buy porridge. At this moment, Cho-hong's grandmother appeared and dragged Cho-hong's aunt back home. Anyway, Cho-hong's aunt was very grateful to Cho-hong's grandmother for not erasing the beautiful memories of her youth so that she would know how she had lived and would have a new life. At the same time, Cho-hong sent Sun-jae off to work. He awkwardly gave her the necklace he bought while on a business trip. He even started to practice sweet talk with her. Although it was a bit awkward, Cho-hong was extremely happy and cheerful. She immediately put the necklace around her neck. The rose mark on her chest also glowed brighter. At 10 o'clock at night, the two of them went to the movies together, but the theater was in chaos with two of them, because the two of them were casually showing their affection in the theater with many people around them. Secretary Kim was also there by chance. He tried to remind them, so they let go of each other. The two of them held hands and walked into the elevator without noticing the words, "under repair." Suddenly, the elevator shook and fell. The two of them panicked and hugged each other. At this moment, Cho-hong unconsciously snapped her fingers, causing the elevator to stop and turn on the lights. Sun-jae also accidentally witnessed this scene. When she got home, she was worried that he had discovered her secret. Sun-jae was also thinking suspiciously about Cho-hong's previous unconscious snaps and the time she claimed to be a witch, but he thought that she must be hallucinating. Her thoughts were just that stupid when she was drunk. At that moment, Cho-hong's grandmother entered the room, interrupting Sun-jae's train of thought. She came to give him this month's rent. She accidentally saw a scar on his chest. He said that when he was young, he had an accident and it left left a scar. She was also thinking about something. The next day, Sung Jae went to see the doctor as usual, and his health was still good. He asked about the scar on his chest, but the doctor said that there was no sign of injury or trace of a knife pointed at his chest, like he vaguely remembered. This could be something mysterious that modern medicine could not explain. Knowing the relationship between Cho Hong and Sung Jae, Secretary Kim advised him to stop. Secretary Kim was afraid that Sung Jae's mother would find out. Cho Hong was an obstacle to Sung Jae's succession of the corporation. His mother would not hesitate to overcome anything. She might hurt an ordinary girl like Cho Hong. Sung Jae suddenly remembered the reasons why Cho Hong transferred schools many times when he was in school. Secretary Kim said that it was just the rich imagination of children at that time. For example, Cho Hong could stop a car accident by snapping her fingers, or the bullies who saw her suddenly fell down. The withered flowers would bloom again when Cho Hong passed by. Sung Jae fell into deep thought. At the same time, Cho Hong remembered Sung Jae's words. Cho Hong discovered that the leg rest of her chair was the ping pong ball that Sung Jae had been looking for all this time in the house. Cho Hong hesitantly asked her grandmother. She wondered if their witches had ever harmed anyone with a knife, even if it was just a child. But Cho Hong's grandmother said that as long as someone was a potential threat to their status, she wouldn't hesitate to do something. Hearing that, Cho Hong was also worried. Cho Hong was afraid that her family was involved in the accident that Sung Jae had mentioned. Cho Hong went back to her room, holding the ball and thinking. When Sung Jae entered her room, Cho Hong hurriedly hid the ball under her blanket. He didn't know what he did to make her angry, but today he didn't see her waiting outside for him. He even thought she was angry on the chair in the room. Afraid that he would find something, she made an excuse to go out and prepare food for him, but he held her back and hugged her to comfort her. He said that he loved her very much. Although she was very happy, her heart was still full of worries. At this time, Cho Hong's grandmother, outside, also heard the conversation between the two of them. On the other hand, at the place of the dark witch, strange things happened that hinted at bad things. She secretly went to see Cho Hong. She said that the necklace that Cho Hong brought to her was a sign that bad things would happen to Cho Hong. Cho Hong said that it was a keepsake of her mother and that she had no memories of her mother. The dark witch reminded Cho Hong that the man she loved was not destined to be hers. Cho Hong's aunt accidentally heard these words. The aunt accidentally got angry and chased the dark witch away. Seeing Cho Hong's grandmother, the dark witch remembered that Cho Hong's grandmother had come to her in the past and something had happened. Now Cho Hong was continuing the same mistake, making her extremely pleased and laughing out loud. Both Cho Hong's grandmother and aunt knew that Sung Jae was not Cho Hong's destined man. Cho Hong said that he was the one she chose and believed that he would never betray her even if he knew her identity. But they told her to end it quickly or they would do it themselves. At the same time, Sung Jae returned home, but Cho Hong's aunt and grandmother's attitude was cold, making him extremely embarrassed. Cho Hong said that her aunt and grandmother already knew about their relationship. Sung Jae didn't understand why Cho Hong's aunt and grandmother didn't like him so much. Did he do something wrong? Cho Hong gave him a comforting kiss, saying that as long as she liked him, that was enough. The two were about to give each other a passionate kiss when at the same time, Sung Jae's mother walked in. She ordered everyone to go out. Then she scolded Sung Jae. She questioned him for having people reinvestigate the retired policeman from the past about the accident. No matter how much he searched, he couldn't find anything. Before leaving, she did not forget to tell him to quickly leave this shabby place and that she would pretend not to see the girl earlier. That was the best thing for his legacy. Cho Hong heard everything outside and was extremely sad. Then Cho Hong went to Jae Wook to confide in him because she had no friends. He was always ready to listen when she needed him. Cho Hong then took off the necklace that Sung Jae had given her. She wanted to let go of this feeling, but her heart did not allow it. On the other hand, when she saw Sung Jae's mother again, Cho Hong's grandmother and aunt felt very familiar. Cho Hong's grandmother said that she saw a large scar on Sung Jae's chest. The two recognized him as the boy from that year. Then Cho Hong asked Sung Jae to go for a walk in the park. She gave him the necklace back and told him that when he had sorted out his thoughts, he should put it back on for her himself. There was something she wanted to tell him. Cho Hong snapped her fingers and the tall buildings changed color continuously. The lights flashed and then everything around her seemed to stop. Everyone stopped what they were doing. She then hugged him and said that this was something she had always hidden from him. She loved him very much now, and so did her heart. She couldn't stop herself from loving him. Cho Hong then asked Sung Jae if he would still love her after knowing everything about her. Sung Jae was about to answer when Cho Hong's grandmother and aunt made him faint. Cho Hong's grandmother and aunt then took Sung Jae home. The two looked at the scar and confirmed that he was the child when he was little. Cho Hong was confused and asked, "You're not the ones who kidnapped me when I was little, right?" Cho Hong's grandmother and aunt realized that Sung Jae might have remembered what happened when he was little, so they decided to erase his memories. Although Cho Hong tried her best to stop him, it was useless. Cho Hong's aunt pulled Cho Hong out and said that she had been man like her. Even though that man truly loved her, it was hard for them to accept her identity as a witch. Her mother had been like that too, and her mother had been betrayed. The best thing now was to erase all of Sunjae's memories before he fell in love with Cho-hong. They were just landlord and tenant. That was the best thing for both of them. Cho-hong had no choice but to accept. Sunjae's memories were being erased step by magic. The truth was that when he was young, he was kidnapped by the driver to threaten his mother. While running away, Sunjae was discovered by the driver. Because he was blindfolded, Sunjae accidentally tripped over a sharp object and stabbed himself in the chest. When the driver saw Sunjae's wound, he was scared and ran away. He left Sunjae lying there with a bloody wound. The next day, when Sunjae woke up, he called Cho-hong into his room. He asked her what happened last night. While Cho-hong was still confused, Sunjae pointed at the stain on the bed. He asked her to clean it up, otherwise the three of them would have to move out. Cho-hong only asked if Sunjae felt any pain. Sunjae said he was fine in a determined voice. She sadly said she would make the bed for him, and then left with wet eyes. He even used an arrogant attitude during breakfast that made everyone uncomfortable, but it also proved that his memory had been completely erased. Seeing the worried faces of her grandmother and aunt, she said that she would be fine soon so that she could return to how she was before. When Sunjae was about to leave the house for work, he gave Cho-hong a pile of clothes and asked her to wash them, but Cho-hong coldly refused because it was not in the contract. At the same time, Sunjae dropped the necklace he gave her. Cho-hong picked it up and returned it to him. She said that he should take care of his things. Sitting in the car, Sunjae looked at the necklace with a puzzled expression. Secretary Kim saw it, but he didn't dare to ask much. Suddenly, the tire blew out and wobbled, causing Secretary Kim to brake suddenly, injuring Sunjae. Secretary Kim was worried because he noticed that he had been having a lot of bad luck recently. He told Sunjae that not long ago, he was also close to death because he was stuck in an elevator, even though the power was off. He also heard that a couple was also stuck in it, but luckily they survived. This made Sunjae remember a little about the incident with Cho-hong. At this time, Cho-hong was sitting with Jae-wook to relieve her sadness. Seeing her drunken appearance, he cursed Sunjae under his breath. Hearing that, Cho-hong immediately lectured Jae-wook, but Sunjae at the same time saw the scene of the two of them being intimate with each other. At this time, Sunjae got upset and got out of the car to carry Cho-hong home, leaving Jae-wook to just sit there and sigh. When he got home, he took her to his room. Cho-hong was drunk and saw Sunjae's current state, so she couldn't help but hold on. She said that even if he forgot everything, she would remember him. Then she pulled him closer and placed a kiss on his lips. At this moment, Cho-hong's grandmother called Sunjae out to meet her privately. She offered to exchange the expensive bottles of wine that he had previously valued highly to pay for the rent. What she meant was that she wanted him to leave, but Sunjae refused and said that he liked it here very much and would not move to another place. Then he immediately went back to his room. Suddenly, his chest hurt as much as before. With his injured appearance, he collapsed in front of the porridge restaurant. At this time, because Sunjae had lost too much blood, Cho-hong's grandmother went to the dark witch's place to force her to find a way to save his life. The dark witch gave Cho-hong's grandmother a knife and said that she needed the hair of a young woman and the hair of a newborn baby. At that time, Cho-hong's grandmother took Cho-hong's hair to save Sunjae. Finally, she stabbed the magic knife into his wound. Because she lived in Cho-hong's hair, Sunjae had witch blood flowing through his body. That's why he was able to easily break the barrier that his aunt had created to lock the door last time. After that incident, Cho-hong's aunt and grandmother erased Sunjae's memory, but he still had some memory and came to this house. The two were afraid that because he had witch blood flowing through his body, his memory erasing magic would be ineffective again. Cho-hong had just woken up after a night of drunkenness. Cho-hong covered her face in shame as she remembered that last night she had confessed her feelings to Sunjae. Not stopping there, she even shamelessly kissed him. The next day, Cho-hong's aunt still felt that there was something wrong with the appearance of the dark witch who came to see Cho-hong. She used dark magic. Although she helped other witches find a way to solve their problems, in the end, her purpose was to steal their power, causing many people to disappear into the darkness. Cho-hong's aunt suspected that the dark witch's acceptance of a child like Sunjae's request for help was not a simple matter. At this time, Cho-hong thought about the embarrassing incident last night, so she went to Sunjae's room to explain, but he thought that it was her confession, which made her angry. It was obvious that he was the one who said he liked her first. At this time, Sunjae went to work and forgot his phone in the room. Cho-hong saw this and immediately grabbed it and ran after him. At this moment, a car was rushing straight towards him. When Sunjae was standing between life and death, Cho-hong snapped her fingers and used magic to save him. Seeing her standing there in a daze, he immediately came over and hugged her. He said he was fine, so she didn't need to worry too much. Everyone saw this scene. At the dark witch's place, she indeed had a deep plot to save Sunjae's life when he was young. Her curse magic also began to take effect on Sunjae. Seeing the affectionate appearance assurance that Sung-jae treated Cho-hong sweetly, the three witches sat down and talked to each other. Sung-jae's memories were definitely not completely erased. From here, Cho-hong learned the truth that when she was young, her grandmother and aunt used magic to save Sung-jae instead of harming him. Because they used all their strength to save him, their magic was no longer strong. At that time, the taste of the porridge in the shop was a bit strange, so her grandmother temporarily closed the shop. Knowing this, Cho-hong emotionally hugged her grandmother. Cho-hong was very happy that her grandmother had saved the person she loved. Cho-hong also wouldn't let her grandmother and aunt worry about her anymore. Because of her witch identity, Cho-hong might give up on this love. At this time, Sung-jae also gradually remembered everything. Sung-jae knew who was the one who had harmed him. It was none other than the driver, the person that Sung-jae had thought was his savior for so many years. In the past, he had used Sung-jae as a hostage to threaten his family, causing him to be in danger. That scar was still imprinted on Sung-jae's chest. After that, Sung-jae called Cho-hong. He asked her to bring the documents he had forgotten at home to the company. He made an excuse to ask her out for lunch, but in her heart, she had already decided to stop everything. She offered to pay him back the rent in full so he could move out of the house and live more comfortably. Hearing this, Sung-jae pretended not to understand. He said he liked the house so much that he wouldn't leave even if everyone tried to chase him away. Moreover, as the landlord, he didn't need to listen to anyone. Cho-hong sighed when she heard that. She knew that it was inevitable that she would have to face him, but she would try to keep her distance as a tenant. At this moment, Sung-jae seemed to have seen through Cho-hong's heart. Then Sung-jae's mother came to find him and told him that he had to go on a business trip for a while to prepare for his new position. Sung-jae of course objected. He revealed a secret that made his mother extremely shocked. He actually remembered everything. Moreover, the one who ordered the driver to kidnap him was his mother. In order to keep her husband from following another woman, she used her son's danger to test him. But Sung-jae had an accident like that. His father felt guilty because of that, so the family was still warm and happy, but he could not accept what his mother had done to his life. Sung-jae wanted to oppose her directly. At that moment, his chest suddenly had a severe pain that made him collapse. On the other side, Cho-hong's grandmother and aunt discovered the dark witch's plot. In fact, she was only sealing Sung-jae's death in the past. When he knew the truth about himself, real death would come to him. That was also the reason why the scar from that year had not disappeared. Cho-hong accidentally heard these words. She was extremely shocked. At that moment, she received a call from Secretary Kim. He said that Sung-jae was in critical condition without knowing the reason. Seeing Sung-jae in a coma on the hospital bed, Cho-hong angrily went to the dark witch. When she saw Cho-hong, she remembered that Cho-hong's mother had also come to her in a miserable state in the past, because the man was destined to die. Cho-hong angrily went to the dark witch to collect power from other witches. Cho-hong continuously broke everything. The dark witch did not want to lose her 1,000 years of hard work, so she attacked Cho-hong. Luckily, Cho-hong's aunt and grandmother arrived in time to save her. Cho-hong's aunt used the dark witch's attack magic to indirectly cause all the power bottles to shatter. Thanks to that, her dark curse was broken. The magic returned to the other witches. Sung-jae was no exception. His seal was removed. He suddenly woke up in the middle of life and death and came back to life. After Sung-jae returned, Cho-hong's entire family had mysteriously disappeared. Although Secretary Kim tried her best to search for them, he did not know where they were. Sung-jae returned to the empty house and looked at everything around him, making memories flood back to him. Jae-wook also came to find Cho-hong, but she only left him a letter of encouragement. Two sad men sat drinking together. A year later, after many searches, Sung-jae found out that the girl with superpowers was carrying many trays of hot porridge with her grandmother and aunt at a small roadside restaurant. He went to her. Sung-jae expressed that he missed her very much. During the past time, she had saved him twice in his life. Even if his memory was erased, he could not forget her. Cho-hong pretended not to know what Sung-jae was saying. Sung-jae took out the necklace he had promised to give Cho-hong. He wished she would come home with him, along with her aunt and grandmother. The two were moved and hugged each other intimately in the middle of the crowded market. The chicken seller, who had secretly sought out the recipe in the past, now had a famous family chicken recipe. On the other hand, after many efforts, Jae-wook had also successfully become a top story writer. Finally, the whole witch family had a happy life together under their familiar roof. Cho-hong's grandmother and aunt had to watch the young couple's lovemaking every day to the point of depression, but they were all happy. The drama ends here. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and see you again.